Welcome to Health Professionals Outside the Box podcast. In this series, I'll be talking to health professionals who've leveraged their professional skills to pursue alternative income sources, alternative careers, and entrepreneurship. We will gain insight into their motivations, experiences, and challenges, and learn how we too can carve our own path to finding purpose, fulfillment, and financial freedom. I'm your host, Fee. Thank you for listening. Welcome back to this episode of the podcast. I have today Natasa Economou. She's a physiotherapist and head of operations for Indigo Volunteers. Tass, welcome.
Hi, Fee. Hey.
Nice to have you. So tell us about yourself and your professional background.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tass. I'm a physiotherapist by background. I studied to be a physiotherapist, and now I work for a charity called Indigo Volunteers, which are an international volunteer charity, and I work there as head of operations.
What made you choose physio as a career early on?
So actually, I had back pain when I was 14. Went to a physiotherapist, and I was just so inspired by her. You know, when you're a teenager and you are inspired by many things, she was able to look at me and tell me exactly what was wrong with me. And I just thought, wow, that's really cool. She's got X-ray vision. I want X-ray vision. So then I just studied to be a physio. So by the age of 21, I was working on the busy NHS wards. That's what inspired me.
Okay. Did you do the rotations, or did you stay in one department?
Yeah, I always have itchy feet. So I went from different trusts, because I just wanted to get as much experience as possible. My goal was to become a pediatric physiotherapist. So I did some rotations in acute hospitals, in the community, and then eventually trained to be a pediatric physiotherapist. And that's kind of where where it then led me into more the charity sector, charity world.
How long had you worked as a physio before transitioning to a charity?
I trained as a physiotherapist. So it's a vocational course. So by the age of 21, I was a physio. And what was happening was I was really making quite difficult decisions about people's healthcares and futures. I felt quite out of my depth, but I had this goal to be a pediatric physio. And after I gained the right skills to be able to achieve that, I wanted to use my skills out of the comfort of the UK healthcare system. So that's when I looked to volunteer abroad, and that's when I found Indigo Volunteers. And so, they were doing something very different in the voluntary sector. They were changing the narrative of international volunteering being an exotic experience, and matching skilled professionals with small organizations around the world. And they required a pediatric physiotherapist. So in 2014, I volunteered in a children's home in Rwanda, doing intense rehab with 2 of the children there.
And how long did you do that for?
Just 3 months. It felt like a lot longer. I did go back a few times, and I still keeping very close contact with 2 of the children.
Nice.
They're amazing.
What sort of differences did you notice, like between the care in Rwanda and the care that pediatric services do offer here in the UK?
Yeah, huge differences. Jean-Paul, who was the main child I was helping, I was rehabbing, he had cerebral palsy and was only had use of one arm. And if he was in the UK healthcare system, he would have been able to potentially walk and talk, and he wasn't able to do that. But he does lead a healthy life at the moment, which is great. And one of the ladies who worked in the children's home is now adopted him, and we me and my family, my friends, we support her to take care of him still. So that was in 2014. So that's been.
Wow. So is that where your desire to work for a charity stemmed from then?
I guess I didn't have a desire to work for a charity as such, but just the desire to use the privilege I had to do social good. And I guess it was Arena, who's one of the children, who is now an incredibly inspiring, intelligent young woman who goes to university now, and Jean Paul, who taught me so much about myself and the world, and made me realize just the immense privilege I have, and the luck to be born into a loving family in a safe country. And I guess my desire stemmed from them, and then it continued really. I went back a few times to see how else I could help Arena and Jean Paul, and then in 2015, the period of the European refugee crisis started, where over 1 million people were making dangerous journeys and still making dangerous journeys to seek safety from war and persecution, and it was obviously all over the news. And that was in 2015, and it was Holly, the founder of Indigo Volunteers, who then moved to Greece at the end of 2016 to coordinate volunteers. And then I went to volunteer in Greece and became incredibly inspired by the people there. And in 2017, it was Holly that gave me the opportunity to manage the then community development branch of the charity, which was where we were helping to connect volunteers with small organizations around the world, while she was developing a new branch of Indigo, which was focused on supporting grassroots organizations who were serving refugees and migrants within Greece. And so now, 4 years on, our focus is now only in Europe, where we support 50 organizations with volunteers and training and psychosocial support.
It's very interesting. So, when you were in Greece, had you stopped working as a physio, or did you continue your work there as a physio alongside the charity?
So I still work as a physio. I've kept up my skills throughout the whole transition of going from a physio to head of operations, where I am now, because I still love being a physio. I really, really enjoy it still. So yeah, I had a transition of working quite a few jobs, and I locumed for a bit, for maybe a year and a half, doing different jobs, full-time, part-time, private work. I guess at that stage of my career as a physio, I was confident enough to be able to have the right skills that I was able to go into different sectors. So it might have been in the community or pediatric physio, or on the wall.
What skills do you think you've been able to transfer from your physio role to what you're doing now?
I guess you can learn any skill and find a way to fit it and influence your behavior in whatever situation you're in, right? And I guess especially within physio, it's the interpersonal skills that you develop within healthcare, such as communicating in a team and listening, collaborating with others, being adaptive and thinking quickly on your feet, are all skills I've taken from working in really stressful, busy hospitals, clinics, and in the community. And I guess I've been able to transfer those skills into my personal and work life as well.
How did your family and colleagues react to your decision to change?
I'm not sure. I'd like to ask my parents what they thought. I mean, they were probably quite worried for me because I just like flew with it. But my friends my friends were really supportive.
That's good.
Everyone has been really supportive.
Did you have any feelings of guilt? Because I've heard some health professionals who've, gone from a clinical role to a non-clinical role or to a completely different career. I've heard them talking about the feelings of guilt about leaving the profession. Can you relate to that at all?
I think maybe because where I was, I think guilt, maybe not, but maybe just fear that I was doing the right thing, or was this the right path for me to take, or would I be able to go back, like once you've stopped being a physio, will you be able to go back? And I've had those trying moments where I haven't done a shift for maybe 3 months, and then I've gone back into the hospital and I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where anything is, and I don't even know how to write medical notes anymore. People are giving me handovers and I'm like, what's BP again? So I've realized that I need to make sure that I'm keeping up my skills. So every month I do a shift in order to keep those skills up.
Yeah. So you're doing 1 shift a month?
Yeah, at a minimum. At a minimum. Yeah.
I guess you've answered my next question. I was going to ask, what were some of the trying moments that you faced before you made the full transition?
I guess the not realizing I was transitioning until I was just kind of going with the flow. And that can take you away sometimes, because you don't realize that it's happening to you until it's happening. And it pushed me out of my comfort zone, unsurfaced a lot of my insecurities, all of my insecurities. And when you train in a particular profession, you know your stuff, right? It comes second nature to you. I had those X-ray vision, the X-ray goggles, and then you're faced with Excel spreadsheets and marketing campaigns, and you have to have words with yourself, because the inner critic comes along and telling you that you're not good enough and you can't do it. And that's trying, and that's a trying moment even now. But because Indigo is a really young charity and really dynamic, we're all kind of learning together and supporting one another and making it work. So it's been a nice journey for me.
See anything that you do to fight that fear?
God, I do everything, and I'm still struggling. I meditate every day. I journal. I exercise. But just like everybody, we need, it's a practice, right? We just need to keep at those practices of meditating and exercising and eating properly. Food is a huge one, because we process most of our emotions by eating, and so making sure that I don't have rich tea biscuits in the house, because I will eat them all. So I think it's mental health is so important, especially now, especially with lockdown, and having a desk job where you're working from home. Oh my God, I loved going into the hospital. I was like, yes, I get to go outside. I get to talk to other people. And I kind of miss those interactions. I miss those interactions, normal hospital life, where you're on a ward and you can say hi to somebody, even though we've got all face masks on. You can still see people's smiles, and people are talking to you like you're normal human, and they're respecting you, rather than everything's behind a screen all the time. So yeah, that's
I think it's made us really reflect on the connections that we have, don't we? And the social networks. I think we appreciate them a lot more now. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've spoken to a few people in the past who've had an interest in working for charities, but one of the main reasons I hear holds them back is the differences in the pay scales. Is this something you considered, and how did you prepare financially for that change?
For many people, career change means a possible pay cut, and especially within the charity sector. I realize I'm speaking from a very privileged place by even being able to transition to another sector, especially a low-paying sector like the charity world, where most of the time you have to volunteer first in order to get the experience you need in order to get a paid job. And that's the same within the grassroots sector that we're in. I had to volunteer a lot of my time first and not get paid very well first. But I had a few revenue streams as such. I worked at a private hospital. When I was away, I did a lot of letting out my flat on Airbnb, which was really great. Yeah. I worked with my friend on a startup, and I also cut my outgoings by a lot, because whilst I couldn't fully control what I earned, I could control what I spent.
That's right.
And so that really helped me. And it's also really good, because we shouldn't put all of our eggs in one basket. We shouldn't put all of our counting on just one thing to keep us afloat. So it means that you do have to be a bit creative with like letting my flat out on Airbnb, again coming from a privileged place to even be able to do that. So yeah, I can fully understand how people would find that transition difficult, and it's not a fair sector. It's not, because you have to volunteer first, and most people can't do that. And so if you want to go into the charity sector, there's not that many opportunities for people who aren't able to afford that, unfortunately.
Tell us a bit about the charity.
Indigo Volunteers is an international voluntary charity that supports grassroots organisations who are dedicated in serving people seeking safety, in this sense, refugees and migrants, into Europe. Our partners work along borders, in refugee camps, and in cities where they provide basic needs such as food, clothing, education, and healthcare. We partner with 50 organisations, mainly in Greece, but also in France, Bosnia, and Serbia. And we help them by connecting them with skill-matched volunteers. We share professional resources with them, facilitate psychosocial sessions, and also training on various humanitarian topics they require, such as children safeguarding or first aid or understanding migration law. And so in a way, lifting up an under-resourced, underfunded grassroots sector. And so Indigo was actually started by our founder, Holly Penelva, who set to change the narrative of international volunteering from a holiday, an exotic experience, to a more responsible voluntary sector. And so there are hundreds of voluntary agencies out there that charge large amounts of money for packages to volunteer abroad in distant countries. And and why this is a problem is that it focuses on just the volunteer experience rather than the communities that they serve. And it also takes away like the core purpose of what volunteering, which is just humans helping each other. And so Indigo is very unique because we prioritize the needs of our partners over the needs of volunteers. So for example, if a doctor is needed in France urgently, but the volunteer is desperate to go on a 2-week holiday in Greece afterwards, we would only suggest them a health project in France. So we direct people to where the need is needed the most. That's Indigo in a nutshell.
What do you find most fulfilling though about your role?
I guess the most fulfilling part of my role is hearing the impact that we have. So when we get the testimonials from volunteers, from our partners, that we have been able to make really strong connections with people that have been able to, some of our partners maybe wouldn't been able to run a health clinic if it wasn't for the volunteers that we provide to them. And so hearing the volunteer stories as well, where people go to volunteer and then they start up their own organization, or they reevaluate. We had a testimonial about, I came back from volunteering and completely reevaluated my own values, and now I work for a social enterprise. When you hear where it changes people's mindsets, it changes people's behaviors, and also just the fact that we have this influence on the voluntary sector, and we focus on encouraging people to educate themselves before volunteering, question their intentions, and we're also big advocates for psychosocial support for volunteers, and have established a network of therapists that provide therapy sessions to volunteers completely pro bono, which means that they try to avoid burnout, and to be able to create a sector where mental health is prioritized.
We often hear people advise us to follow our passions. Do you think passion alone is enough for making a career change?
Yeah. Have you heard of the Japanese word ikigai? So it means so I read this book about, I can't remember it completely, but there's different circles, and it's what you love, what you can get paid for, what's your passion, and then in the middle is this ikigai, where you're getting paid for something that you love to do, and it's also your passion. But they always advise that but don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if you just go with your passion, then it can be a detriment to yourself, to your own mental health, because if it's not a success, then you haven't necessarily got anything to completely fall back
on. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's important.
So reflecting on your journey to date, or your overall professional experience, was there anything that you think you could have done differently?
I mean, I guess it's good to reflect, right? And it's, when people say that, I don't regret anything in life, or that, I think it's different to saying I don't regret anything, but actually just reflecting on what you could have done differently is a really nice way of putting it. Because when you're in it, you can't fully see the cracks. And I think taking more courses and figuring out what skills maybe are needed for my role, and asking for support is probably something that I would have done differently. So maybe taking it maybe a bit more slower than I did, because it's been a fast 4 years, and I mean, I still love it, which is great. But seeing what skills I'm lacking, and trying to figure out how I can upskill myself and be better.
Any words of wisdom for someone considering a career change?
Yeah, I wish somebody would have been able to mentor me during my career change. But for anyone wanting a career change, I think the wrong advice to give would be, quit your job, or get the first ticket out of there, and tell your boss exactly what you think about them, and just speak with different people, develop positive habits and different strategies for your life. Make a list of the things that inspire you, and it doesn't mean you have to quit your day job. you may have not seen the value in the current work that you're doing. For example, maybe you need to take a course, or you need to try something new or something completely different. And it's all about, I think, figuring yourself out first and asking yourself what makes you come alive before you're thinking about your career. I think that
sounds interesting. Yeah. And what's your plan for the future?
I don't know. It's really difficult to think when we were in lockdown as well, right? Like, me and my boyfriend just bought a camper van, which is so exciting. So my plans for this year is to do up the camper van and to go on some nice trips.
Oh, nice.
And enjoy life, because we've had a pretty hard year, a pretty hard couple of years, really. And so I think we deserve to have a bit of fun,
take care of ourselves.
Thank
you so much, Tass. It's been really interesting to hear your view about this career change. Where can people find you if they wanted to know more about you?
LinkedIn,
yeah. So do they type, is it Natasa Economou or
Natasa Economou?
That's great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Fee. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, rate it, and review it on iTunes, as this can help others find it. If you'd like updates on the podcast, you can follow the pages on Instagram or Facebook by searching for Well Restorer. If you have any questions or would like to give some feedback, you can send an email to info@wellrestorer.co.uk. Thanks once again. Take care.